Hello, my name's Colin Clark. I am the producer, director and co-writer of a brand new musical that's coming to Bolton Albert Halls in August called Birdsong in Bedlam. We first started writing the show, me and Stuart. Some of these songs were written 10, 12 years ago when we had our band, Colin, and then a few years after that, maybe 8 years ago, I had the idea of making this into a play. So I wrote a play that was initially loosely based on Dante's Inferno and other parts of the Divine Comedy. And then I approached Stuart about making it into a musical and writing more music basically. So we worked closely together over the last 4 or 5 years to bring what you see now, to bring the show together. So primarily I think we've been working really hard on it now for the last 4 years. Working with Stuart and Paul has been a great experience. I've known Stuart for about 15 years. We hit it off straight away. I used to work with Stuart at his dental practice. And like I say, we formed the band together. We used to go running a lot. We go on walks, and we just click. We just talk about stuff all the time. You know, we just talk about different philosophical ideas. We just really close mates. You know, I love him to bits. He's a really great guy. More than that, he's a really talented songwriter. He gets my lyrics. You know, we're just on the same wavelength. So working with Stuart is really, really easy to write songs. I mean, we work hard at it, don't get me wrong, but it just clicks. We just seem to have that partnership. What I think, you know, probably historically there have been pairs of people who've worked together, lyricists and musicians who just click and they just seem to get each other. And that's the partnership I have with Stuart. With Paul, I got to know through Stuart a little bit later, but I've known Paul over 10 years. He's a really talented guy. He just seems to know. He's always worked with me and Stuart on our music, and he's known Stuart longer than I have. And he understands what we're trying to do. He understands the music business. He understands what a track needs, where the filler is, he cuts it out. He just makes our music so relevant, and he's just that other person who, without him, we just could not do what we've done. You know, he's produced the entire music for the show, and he's worked so hard on it. It's just incredible the thousands of hours he's put in to producing. Effectively, there's about an hour of music in the 2-hour show. So, you know, to produce that hour of music to the quality and the standard that he has, his work is just exemplary. You know, I would strongly suggest that anybody who is thinking of getting into music, or, you know, just go and talk to Paul at Northwest Recording Studios, because he just knows what he's doing. So working with those guys, you know, I've sat down and worked musically with him as well on a few of the tracks. I've even done a little bits of vocals and things with him from time to time. And it's just always been a pleasure. It's always been, you know, we've had our falling outs and we've had our moments, as I have with Stuart. And that always happens because we're so passionate about what we do. And if we weren't passionate and we didn't have our own strong views, we wouldn't be challenging each other. So I think it's really important that you have people that you both respect around you, but that you can challenge their ideas and they can challenge yours and push you to that higher level, that you're all working to the same end. There's no egos involved. It's all about the show. What works for the show is what's the most important thing. You know, there's times I've had to take things out of the script or change lyrics that I've not been happy about, and they've just come to me and said, look, this is right for the show, and that's it. You just have to do it, you know. And I know that Stuart and Paul have both made concessions as well to some of my ideas. So it's about a partnership of, you know, 3 people working on this show that work together to the end to create a fantastic show. I think for me personally, I mean, I can only talk from my perspective, as a writer, when you sitting down 4 years ago and I was creating these characters and I had these ideas in my head, and you know, sometimes you're not sure where characters are going, how they fit into a show, all them kind of things, and it's a very lonely process, that you just hours and hours, late nights. Sometimes I was working right through the night writing, you know, sometimes I would be throwing away scripts that I was just not happy with, but I'd had, you know, hours and hours and days worth of work on them, and then I'd just like bin that and start again, and you know, it's a very lonely process. To get to the point where an actor then takes those words and to brings them to life as a character in front of you, and then you can see that character that was in your imagination come to life, and then once I've seen that process, and I can then write as if I'm writing for that person as a real person, and rewrite the dialogue, and you know, work with the actors to really pull them characters out. That's what actors do. An actor's job is to realise a writer's vision and to bring it into life. And for me, that's the most rewarding thing, is to see that come to life. We're not yet at the point where all that comes together on the stage and the characters are interacting. Obviously, we've done it in rehearsals. When I see that on the stage, that will just be an amazing moment, I think. I'm quite emotional, I think, after all these years of work. Challenging aspects of, you know, being a producer, the director and the co-writer. I'm wearing a lot of hats, so obviously you know, it's not normally something somebody would do, but you know, we have budget constraints, so it's been very challenging finding funding for all this. You know, that's never easy, and there's always compromises to be made in the quality of a show when you're looking for funding. We've been very lucky with some of our funding sources. You know, and others have fell through, and you know, that's been challenging at times. And then of course the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, didn't help, to say the least. You know, we've been postponed twice. We should have been on in October 2020, then the theatres obviously were all shut, so we got moved to May 21, and then that was postponed again, and now we're on in August. And thankfully, you know, as we literally go into rehearsals on the 19th of July, that is what they're calling Freedom Day, when everything opens up. So bizarrely, it has felt very right for us, because we couldn't have predicted that years ago. But I don't know, there's just something that feels like it's almost fated, like this needs to be seen now, it's right, people are going to come and support it. You know, and people want to see live theatre again, and this show is a very pertinent show. There's a lot of social commentary. You know, there's stuff in there that talk about masks, for example, how the masks we wear are our faces that we cannot live without. And when I wrote those words 4 years ago, I had no idea we would all be wearing masks. I was talking metaphorically about the masks we wear over our own faces, what we show to the world, and things like that have become so relevant now in a different way. So it almost makes me feel like this is the right time, this is the zeitgeist, if you like, the right time for this show to be on. So maybe all these things had to happen. I'm somebody who very much doesn't worry about the things in the past or the things in the future. I live very much focus on what I can do now. You know, the past is done with, the future I can't deal with yet, I can plan for it, but I'm very much in this moment now, dealing with what I can do today. You know, and I think if I've learned anything over this process, focus on the things you can do and get them small things done, and eventually when you do enough small things, it just starts making a difference. And this show has done thousands and thousands and thousands of small tasks by hundreds of people, you know, to produce the quality of the show that we've got. How am I feeling getting closer to what we've got? A month to go from tomorrow. The show opens a month tomorrow. I am feeling excited. We start rehearsals a week on Monday, so in 8 days time. It's very nervy. Rechecking things at the moment. I feel like, is everything ready to go? You know, are we ready for rehearsals? It's that kind of thing. Have we got all the props? Have we got all the set? All these kind of things, you know. recently have been working on the lighting plots and the tech riders and all these kind of costumes and things like this. It's been very difficult working through the pandemic because we haven't had the support from the industry, so we haven't been able to find lighting designers easily or costume designers. A lot of stuff we've had to do ourselves, but that's been really cool. I've learned so much. If I was to sum it up, I am excited, nervous, but so looking forward to actually getting in the studio, working with the actors and getting this show on, so I can sit there with the rest of the audience and go, this is what we did as a team, me and Stuart and Paul and all the actors and all the people who've worked behind the scenes. You know, we can sit there, we can look at this show and we can be proud of what we've done. The way I write is to write in layers. So I think if you're going to write something, I'm putting my writer's hat on now. If you're going to write something, you have to have something to say, first of all. And the thing I wanted to say in this show was to comment on various topics. So the show covers a lot of these. It's primarily about mental illness, specifically in young men and the pressures they're facing in society. That is the kind of the surface layer, if you like. When I was writing the show, I was very much aware that it has to be a spectacle, it has to be enjoyable. The people have to sit down and be entertained. So on one level, you're writing this level of entertainment. You know, we want to entertain our audience, we keep them engaged. The level below that is very much a kind of a social commentary level. What are we saying? What are the characters saying about society as it is today, both metaphorically and literally within the show? So we do a lot of that. Specifically, Cassiel, one of the characters, talks a lot about things like that. The layer below that is very much a philosophical layer where we explore things like a universal consciousness or the things that go on inside our minds or different philosophical ideas. And anybody who knows anything about Jung or different philosophers throughout the ages will recognise a lot of the themes that are quite pertinent to some of the characters in the show. And you know, the show is about the 7 deadly sins. So each of those characters talk about the value of life from their perspective. So there's always going to be a philosophical element to that. And so that was a really interesting level to write at as well. And then just another layer I thought was quite cool below that was to put a load of pop culture in. So I had a lot of fun. There's over 200 different references to different films, books, other pieces of literature, other pieces of music within the score that I know Stuart and Paul have put in. There are references to films going back to some of my favourite directors like Stanley Kubrick and David Lynch. So if you know their films well, you'll recognise bits from there. You know, there are little Easter eggs all through the show that don't really mean anything as far as the story or the plot is concerned, but they just add a little bit of fun in there as well. Partly I put those in for my sanity, so because when you're writing, you're rewriting things over and over again, and it's quite good fun to put these things in. But I just think it also adds to the level of interest in the show. And then there's another layer, I mean there's quite a lot of layers in this show, where it's all symbolic. I'm very much a believer, and I know Stuart is as well, symbology is very important in the world. You know, if you think about the image of your favourite pop stars or writers or these images, it's all imagery, it's all symbology. You know, religion's all symbology, it's all this kind of ideas, you know. So you'll notice throughout the show there are bits of graffiti on the set. We use these boxes that have different symbols that are rotated, what do different things. People will see those things, they might not necessarily know what they mean, but I believe that by making them an integral part of the show, it creates a deeper meaning within the show that people can explore if they want to. It will make no difference to somebody if they don't know what those symbols mean, but it will add a level of interest if people do know what they mean. So I think with all these layers, that's how I write. And I think when you put them all together, what you're creating is a massive package of layers that some people will just go and watch it for entertainment. Some people will get interested in the philosophy. Some people will get interested in the symbology. Some people will delve into the characters at different levels. It might just be a pop culture for some. But whatever level you want to explore it at, I think you'll find something for yourself in the show. I think, as I said before, if you're going to do writing, you have to say something. And the only point of saying something is to present questions to the person reading or watching the show. I'm not a believer in telling people what to think. I'm a believer that a writer or a director or somebody who's doing art in some form should pose it as a question and let the audience come to the conclusions of the answers. So you won't find many answers in the show, but you're going to find a whole show full of questions. So I think what I would want the audience to get more than anything is to start a conversation. There are a lot of issues in society that need addressing, and there are a lot of people out there telling you how to think about those things. And for me, that's a dangerous path to go down. I think a better route is to pose the question and have a debate within society. But you can't have that debate unless the questions are asked and they're on people's minds. So my job as a writer, the co-writer, and as a director is to make sure that the audience are presented with those questions in an interesting and an entertaining way, so that after the show and they're driving home, they can be discussing these issues. And if that's what they do, then I've done my job. Advice for an aspiring theatre writer. Okay. The first thing, have fun. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, you won't do it to the level of commitment that you're going to need to finish it. So enjoy it. Write about something you're passionate about, because that will give you the legs to carry on doing it. Write about something that's worth writing about. You've got to have a passion for it, but you've also got to be interested in it, and it's got to engage other people. So find something that's worth writing about, that you're passionate about, and have fun writing about it. And then just write. If you want to be a top sportsman, for example, nobody turns up in the final of the Olympics 100 metres not having put the work in to get there. And writing is exactly the same. Nobody turns up with a finished show that's taking years and years to complete and involved hundreds of people to produce it. It just doesn't happen. You have to put years of practice and writing, and just write anything. Just write short stories, write lyrics for songs, write monologues for actors, get people to perform them yourself, write short stories, write a novel. It doesn't matter, as long as you're writing. Write a varied amount of work, and eventually you might just write something that breaks through. Don't go into it thinking, I'm going to write the next great novel, and I'm going to make $1 million from it, because that's very, very unlikely to happen. Go into it enjoying the process, and write for yourself primarily, and write for the interest of others, and write to comment on things. And if you enjoy that process, and you enjoy the creativity of it, then you can't lose, because no matter what you write or what the quality of your work is, you'll always have taken pleasure in producing it, and it will never have been a waste of time. But if you're writing to be successful and gain fame and gain riches, you're primarily setting yourself up for a fall. So that would be my advice for a writer. Okay, so again, this is from my perspective. The job of a director, I believe, in theatre, and I'm not talking about film here, although it probably applies as well, is to be the eyes of the audience. I am the filter that the audience will look through when they're looking at the show. Obviously there are the practicalities of a director in blocking the scenes and and pulling out the best from the actors and all these kind of things. But what I am not is an actor, so it's not my job to tell the actors how to act. I know a lot of directors go down that line, but if you employ the right actors, they will bring the acting that you need. My job is to tell them where to stand, tell them what to be doing while they're kind of stood there, where they need to be, all these kind of blocking ideas. But more than that, I have to look at the show as an overall piece, and I have to think to myself, how are the audience going to see this? So the best way for me to describe this is, if you're watching a film and the film is really bad, and you know it's really bad, you don't need to be a director to know that that film is really bad. You can tell that because you're watching a bad film. So my audience will know if they're watching bad theatre. So I have to have the eyes of the audience and recognise if we've made bad theatre, and then correct that and put it right until I'm happy with what we're putting on stage. And I think that primarily that is what a director does. That it will be entertaining and successful, that people will enjoy performing in it, the actors will have a great time, and they will gain some recognition from being in the show, and that our show has a long way to go yet. This is a product that is really just getting on the shelf. We've got to get this into the public's consciousness, and we've got a lot of things we want to say and do with this show. We're hoping that we're going to be able to put it on in many, many more theatres and take it on tour. And if we achieve that, then that to me will be my lifelong dream. So come and see us in Bolton in August. Get your tickets on the link that I'm sure Josh has put somewhere down there. And if you do come and say hi if you see me walking around. And if you like the show, tell me what you think. And if you don't, then don't talk to me.